Yeah, it's 11:01. That's fine. Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us this morning. For those of you who don't know me, and I looked at the list, and I don't know so many of you, so by the way, please connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm Nama Blonder. I am an architect and urban planner with Smart Density. Since COVID started, we started this educational series where I invite different experts in the industry to share their knowledge, and it's purely, educational. Usually these are things that I want to learn more about, and I figure that if I want to learn more about it, other people probably would like to know about it too. And today I invited Chris Smith, who is a project manager at EllisDon Modular, and Temo Cruz, who is a modular and prefabrication coordinator at EllisDon Modular, to share with us Modular Construction 101, which is a very relevant topic if you're following affordable housing initiatives around the city. This topic came up in the news several times lately. But I want to learn more about it, and that's why I thought other people would probably too. And with that, Tim and Chris, take it away.
Thank you so much, Nama. Yeah, certainly really appreciate you inviting myself and Temo here today. Really what we're hoping to accomplish is just give a very high-level overview, of what's going on in the modular industry, particularly in Canada. We're going to talk a little bit about what we got going on here at ED Modular as well. Yeah, like I said, just really try to have a high-level overview. So just a quick kind of agenda, just a quick brief intro. Obviously, we're going to get into our technology and some optimization guidelines, which is important, and I think could be of great value to some of the members on the call here today on what to look for early on in a project to ensure that it is optimized for modular, along with some examples. So if you want to go ahead and maybe introduce yourself there, Temo.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Chris. So I'm a project coordinator here in EllisDon's new vertically integrated division, ED Modular. Have over 7 years experience in the industry working for different architectural engineering firms, and recently, joined ED Modular and just about to celebrate my 1 year in this growing division. And that's a little summary about me.
Yeah, and myself, I've been in the modular industry for about 5 years now, with a heavy focus on relocatable structures. But really excited to join the ED Modular team about 8 months ago, where we're going to be going after, a lot of the permanent multi-story structures, which we're going to get into in a few minutes here. So, yeah, if we just want to jump into kind of, I always like kind of showing this slide here because when people talk modular, they often think of, sea containers, storage containers, site office trailers, or, trailer homes, if you will. So, I mean, these certainly are part of the industry, and some of these applications, obviously have their use, but, the modular industry has changed significantly, to what everyone used to think modular is. So, hopefully we can maybe dispel some of the perceptions that people do have about modular.
Great, and so this slide just we wanted to show the different modern construction methods that are in the market available. Traditionally, there is a stick-built, it has been the commonplace option for many decades. And then second, we have panelized construction is also a form of prefab, where actual wall panels would be built off-site and then assembled on-site. And then our third option there is modular construction. So there you can see it's more of a structural frame without any interior finishes or MEP work. Typically that will be done on-site. And then our main focus for this webinar is volumetric modular construction, which actually focuses on prefabricated, pre-finished modules that will be done off-site, then simply connected on site via crane and minimizes a lot of labor on site. And that's where we can, you know, kind of dive deeper into this webinar.
And where volumetric comes into play is, you know, what we want to accomplish is 90 to 95% of the building is actually completed in plant, in factory. So we really minimize, you know, the amount of work on site. And that's really where you optimize and get your efficiencies from a modular perspective. So that's kind of where volumetric modular comes into play, and certainly where ED modular is going to be focused. So, you know, in talking about kind of dispelling the, you know, kind of the myths of modular, you know, I'm going to go through a few examples of buildings that were created modularly. And this is, you know, around the world. I mean, these obviously aren't ED modular specific projects. But as you can see, there's been huge advancements in technology. And that's really what has been able to be a benefit and move the needle in modular construction is the different types of products on the market today. Everything from facades to foundation structures, you know, get us to where we are today. So as you can see, here's a hotel and a residence that has been developed modularly. I think we have a couple other good examples on the next slide. We've got a couple buildings in New York as well that have been created. And we're going to touch on briefly kind of some of the ideal markets, you know, that are a good focus for us in the modular industry, and some of the key things that we look for, you know, when it comes to deciding if a project is going to be successful from a modular perspective. So some of the key markets that are really ideal for this type of application. Affordable housing, you know, as I think everyone can agree, just about every city in North America, for that matter, is having, you know, challenges in sustaining the ability to provide affordable housing, you know, across their cities. So that's certainly a great market from a modular perspective, and rapid deployment as well. One of the key buzzwords actually in the construction industry that I've been hearing a lot this year in particular is rapid deployment. We're seeing rapid deployment, housing developments, rapid deployment, long-term cares, and even rapid deployment detention facilities. So, you know, much like most of the economy is changing, everyone wants everything now, right? So, and one of the biggest advantages to modular construction is you can certainly shorten your delivery timelines from a traditional conventional build, which we're going to get into as well. So again, I touched on long-term care, student living, and even, you know, on the smaller scale, laneway housing. You know, I think it's going to be a great opportunity. And I know myself, Temo, and Alma have discussed this in the past, for people to utilize the value of their properties and help the housing crisis, you know, by converting some laneway or maybe backyard space, and can achieve that through modular construction, which is going to, you know, provide less disruption to neighbors, for example. But yeah, and one of the key things that all these buildings have in common is that, you know, the building itself, the floor plate, and maybe units, if you will, can be extremely repeatable. That's another key thing that we look for in modular, where if we can replicate a suite, for example, 100 times throughout the building, we can really achieve some efficiencies from a production standpoint, you know, that really benefits modular. All right, if you want to go to the next slide there, Temo. Oh, I don't know if I lost Temo there. Hang on 1 second. Oh. Oh, looks like it's just me here. So hang on, guys. I apologize for the. I am just going to actually share my screen here because Temo was recording. So bear with me. I apologize, guys. Okay. So hopefully Temo's going to be able to get back in here. But so one of some of the big benefits, I kind of touched on earlier what the benefits are from a modular standpoint. You know, certainly schedule reduction is certainly one of the biggest ones. By able to reduce the schedule of a project, you know, you can really realize some savings for the owner. Everything from the borrowing cost during construction, being able to get maybe tenants in suites earlier, generate you know, revenue quicker. Schedule reduction is certainly one of the biggest benefits. And obviously, if we can provide some cost certainty as well. And one thing that maybe goes unnoticed is the quality. Here at ED Modular, for example, we have a very robust and intense QA/QC process. So we ensure every module that goes out the door actually gets inspected at each level, you know, to ensure that the quality workmanship is there for every part of the building. And obviously efficiency from labor. You know, one of the good analogy to think about is if you're building a 10-story building, for example, you know, all your trades people, you know, when they have to get up to the 10th floor day in and day out, that's a lot of time. It's a lot of walking. Whereas in our modular plant, our plumbers stay at their plumbing workstation every day. So if you were to record, there's actually a good visual, and perhaps I'll try and share that with Nama to send out, of example of the amount of steps laborers take in a traditional build versus steps that our laborers and skilled trades take in our production floor. It's actually insane how much efficiency you gain just in that. So as I mentioned, schedule savings, definitely the biggest benefit of modular. Again, there's often a misconception that, you know, modular is cheaper. And I think people have that because they think of, you know, sea containers and some of the earlier examples we've seen of previous, what modular was, I should say. Not to say that modular can't be more cost effective, it certainly can. And we are seeing, you know, some creative designs and ways that we can be extremely cost comparative or perhaps more effective than traditional, but really where you see your savings, and this is important as an owner is through the schedule. So the ways we achieve the schedule savings is, you know, once designs are approved and necessary permits are approved, we can actually start work on the building in conjunction with all the foundation work and prep that's going on at the same time. So you don't have to wait to start construction until your foundation or your site is ready. We can actually start that in the plant as you're doing your foundation work, which at the end of the day can relate to a significant amount of time savings. It looks like we got Temo back here. So Temo, feel free to jump in at any time here. So we're moving on here. So this is where we're going to get into a little bit more of, you know, what we got going on here at ED Modular. Obviously myself and Temo, you know, on behalf of ED Modular are very excited about what we have going on, but we're going to try not to get too specific in that regard, as we do want to keep this, you know, fairly general discussion about the industry as a whole. But feel free, Temo, if you want to maybe jump into what we got going on. Yeah,
so thanks for your patience there. Just reconnected, some bad internet, but the show continues. So we want to focus now on where do we, you know, create these off-site modular structures? Well, in our 300,000 square foot facility, it's one of the largest in North America. It features 7 module assembly lines, ranging from, you know, 20-foot length modules to even capacity to 60-foot plus long modules. And also features state-of-the-art robotics and automated equipment. So essentially we have material handling robots, welding robots, cold form steel machines as well, and a lot of you know, advanced tech that's coming into the market, which really makes modular construction really reliable and effective as the preferred method of construction going forward. And at capacity, we do have over 1 million square feet of construction capacity projected to reach by end of next year. And we also have certified, to different organizational bodies so that we can provide a very safe and reliable building structure, no different than any other prefab or manufacturer. And we also have 8 acres of storage. So we'll be able to, offsite, we'll be able to construct them and have them stored and ready to go to your selected site.
And that's one of the key things that, individuals sometimes don't realize what we need as a manufacturer is, in addition to our plant facility, we do need to store our modules prior to going to site. You can imagine if you have a 200 module building, it's quite a bit of space that we need. And one of the reasons we selected the facility that we're at is due to that storage capacity, but then also, as you can see in that photo, we're right off of the QEW. So it's extremely easy for us to get our units on a main highway that reaches across, obviously, southwestern Ontario. Because from a logistics standpoint, which we're going to get into as well, is a key key analysis that we need to do prior to starting any project, because that significantly impacts your budget for one thing, but then how you're going to get your modules to site and get them erected. So and just quickly, Tim kind of touched on our plant's going to have state-of-the-art technology. So all of our steel frame modules are actually going to be robotically welded, as Temo alluded to, which is creates extreme efficiencies from a production standpoint. The nice thing is robots can work 24 hours a day if we want them to. So we don't have to just from a sheer capacity standpoint, we're hoping to set us ahead from efficiency. So we're actually partnering with another large provider in the industry, Modular, and we're utilizing predominantly a vector block technology, which was actually developed and designed by a Canadian inventor, which is very exciting. And with this technology, it actually allows us to get up to 20 stories without a secondary structure. So we can certainly go higher than that as well, even up to 60 floors if we had a concrete core. But the ability to go to even 20 stories with our steel structure, we're hoping it is really going to open up the doors for us from a building standpoint. And what are some of the differences between what we're doing here versus what's going on, in the industry as a whole? In Canada, much of the modular plants today are, primarily wood-based construction, which certainly has its place, and there's some advantages and disadvantages to both methods, obviously depending on what it is you're trying to build and trying to accomplish. But one of the reasons we decided to go predominantly with steel is for some of the reasons indicated here. We're not going to go through them all, but obviously we can have some tighter tolerances and rigidity. Obviously, when you're transporting buildings, obviously depending on the type of driver you have driving, the road conditions that you're traveling on, there is, can be a little bit of movement and flex within the structure as a whole. Whereas with steel buildings, you get a little bit of a stronger building as opposed to, let's say a wood, which you may see a little bit of flex. And because we have that strong structure, most of our buildings, we're going to see drywall, typical drywall that you see in a conventional building, as opposed to what you see in a lot of modular buildings today is vinyl covered drywall, which again, it certainly has its place and its advantages, but be able to provide some more standard finishes, particularly when we're looking at the housing market, drywall, standard drywall, may be a little bit better option, let's say, and longevity as well. You know, with steel just being the type of structure it is, you know, you can have a little bit longer longevity. So one of the questions that actually is extremely important in the industry is sustainability. You know, a lot of projects, they are looked at early on from a sustainability standpoint. And yes, it's true. Obviously, wood does have a lower carbon footprint. But what's a huge benefit of the steel that we're using is it's large amounts of recycled steel, and obviously reusable as well. You know, let's say, you know, 50 years down the road and the building is out of use or to be removed, you know, it is a recyclable material. So yeah, and then as we mentioned, we're going to get into just a few design requirements that we look at, you know, from a modular perspective that you certainly want to make sure you take into consideration. So Tim, feel free if you want to maybe just touch on quickly on our, you know, optimal dimensions and some of the reasons we look at them early on.
Yeah, definitely. So I just want to go quickly. I know we're coming short on time, but typically for you know, laying out modules onto your floor plate into a building, for you fellow architects and designers that are tuned in, if you were to follow the minimum sizes and the optimal sizes in either purple or green, you should be able to achieve the modular efficiencies that we've noted before. And then anything in red, you try to avoid, but it is still possible. It just you know, would depend on the project requirements on different transportation and site limitations as well.
For sure, and not to say that we, you know, 60-foot long modules, you gain some efficiencies in that. You know, obviously just being a steel structure, you then have to consider, you know, the additional weight of the building, for example, when you're erecting and craning. You know, those are some of the factors that we look into. And a big thing on the width end is mainly for transportation purposes. As many of you are aware, there's a lot of you know, strict requirements in terms of load sizes that you need to factor in how you're going to get your building to site. So, and then another area that is of importance is deciding on the foundation as well. You know, there's a few different ways you can achieve a good foundation for your building. For example, particularly if you went with, let's say, a steel podium base, and this is a great application, particularly if you're going to have a commercial focus on, let's say, the first level, where you can achieve those bigger, wide open spaces that you typically see. So essentially, I mean, whether it's a concrete or steel podium, you erect on site traditionally, and then our modules essentially just get placed and erected on top to complete the building. Some other exciting technology that's out there is our triadetic foundation as well, which we're seeing you know, much more demand for this type of foundation, you know, throughout the modular industry. And yeah, another key, you know, focus, you know, in the design stages is, you know, that we certainly need to make sure we look at and accommodate is our elevators and stairs. So what's great, again, with the ED modular platform, we can actually build these modules all in-house as well. So we have our stair modules as well as our elevator shaft modules. Now, obviously, the elevator would get installed on site, but the actual core of itself would be incorporated into our building. And again, Temple, feel free to jump in with some more.
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit more in the project examples. So we just move on there would be great.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, we have our cladding options up next. So typically, you know, when designers and architects spec out, for example, an exterior cladding, it's no different than a conventional build if you're attaching to, let's say, a poured concrete wall or a CMU block wall. It essentially just gets attached to our structural steel chassis that we've shown before. So I just wanted to show, you know, 3 options here that we can definitely achieve either factory installed using the IMP insulated metal panel, such as a Kingspan product, to either a stone veneer and precast, which that would have to be site installed, to even a cement board kind of product like a Hardy board. And those, just wanted to quickly show, you know, some different features. But when you design and spec out a modular building, it's no different than conventional. Is the main point I want to get across.
And these are some of the advancements in technology that I was alluded to earlier that has really moved the needle on modular. And again, by being able to provide this type of facade, really makes your building stand out as well. The benefit to modular is many of these can all be factory installed as well, which is a huge plus for modular. And then lastly, I think this is our last part of our presentation here today is, and again, I think this is of importance to many of the people on the call today is, you know, what to look out for and what we look out for when we are looking at a project early on and deciding if it's going to be ideal for modular. And I can't stress this importance enough. The earlier you get a modular team involved on a project, the better. We've seen this multiple times where a project is well into design and perhaps the owner or the client then decides they want to explore a modular option. Not to say that it can't be done, it's just the building is not sometimes optimized when it's that far along in design for modular construction. And we're just going to quickly highlight some of the key things that we look for, you know, when it comes to, you know, making sure the design's laid out in a way that is going to be functional from a, you know, from a modular perspective.
Yeah, so there are 5 key points that I quickly want to cover and just kind of show with these 2 floor plate designs. So one, you can design the suites using the optimal module dimensions that we provided in the earlier slides to fit, for example, to make up a unit. So let's say you have, for example, in the 2 bedrooms, you have 3 modules which make up 1 2-bedroom suite. So once you have, you know, placed the modules into your floor plate, then you can have a little bit more of a featured facades where you can push and pull the modules to allow for either balconies, overhangs, or any kind of interesting facade details. Once you accomplish step 2, then you would repeat the floor plate to your selected, you know, allowable floors. So that way we can actually reach those economies of scale and the modular efficiency that we've noted before. And then the 4th step would actually aim to keep your corridor simple to avoid any jogs or alcoves. It really, you know, makes constructability and erection of the modules a lot simpler and easier. And then 5 is to actually fit your elevators and the stairs into a common module size to avoid for any irregular or additional kind of modules that are already in fabrication. And then Chris can touch a little bit more as to the in-suite design guidelines.
Yeah, and we just have a couple slides here and we'll get this wrapped up. But yeah, I mean, this is an example of, you know, for example, we looked at a project recently that was far along in the design and you know, some of the things that we highlighted and covered that make things extremely challenging from a modular perspective. You know, for example, from a design standpoint, things that you want to consider, you know, when it comes to your washroom facilities and MEP, really, for that matter, we like to congregate into the corridor areas of a building. And the reason for that is we can access those connections, plumbing connections, your risers, your sewer lines, and do those connections floor to floor, suite to suite from the corridor. You know, by having washroom facilities in the center of modules really makes your plumbing runs difficult and your interconnections on site difficult. As well, just the way the, you know, for example, a typical suite is laid out, we want to make sure we keep it within the module sizes. So your demising walls, you know, fall on that modular, you know, marriage wall, you know, again, just to ensure that you have nice, clean connections. So, so again, just some of the things to consider. You know, this is an example of a fantastic. I think this is, you know, a bachelor suite, for example. You can see the, you know, most of the plumbing connections are nice and close to the corridor, making for an easy connection. The entry door is in the center of where that module would fall. And of course, you know, the width, it's approximately 12 feet wide, which is optimal from a logistics and transportation guideline. So again, here's another example of a project, and it's for the most part met our optimized design guidelines, except for our entry door. You know, it would have fallen on you know, in between two modulars, which obviously from a structural standpoint would be a concern. So very minimal adjustments. We recommended just obviously shifting that door to a center of a module. So again, these are just some of the things when we have projects brought to us that we look for. So, but yeah, I think that just about wraps it up. And it was a little challenging putting this presentation together because we're obviously trying to make it very high level and you know, not too you know, project specific, if you will. So hopefully, you know, everyone on this call has found it informative. But with that being said, you know, I think Namak, I think we're gonna maybe see if we can answer a couple questions.